Hey, everybody. On the Run with Beards and Dunn is back. And I'm really looking forward to this podcast. We've got Dick, of course, on with me. And we've got a friend I've never met, but I've known him about him for so many years, Doug Kurtis. Now, if the name doesn't ring a bell, I'm going to try to give you a little background. Doug has run marathons. And there's marathoners and then there's marathoners. And Doug is qualified. He's in the top echelon. 205 finishes, if I'm not mistaken. 200 sub 3 hour marathons, 20 76 sub 220 marathons. Doug, I'm going to brag a little bit. I got 2 of those in my Palomars, I guess you call it. I did Dick's history. I was out biking today and I started doing Dick. I think you've got 12. Dick, or 14, something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah, so the 2 of us together aren't halfway to Doug's total yet, which really speaks volumes. And so Doug Kurtis is our guest. And like I said, I've heard of Doug, man, from way back I guess we're going to get into that, late 70s, early 80s. And so I'm really excited because Doug, you're one of my, I don't like using the term heroes, but I like people that inspire me. And my old college roommate was a guy named Randy Fisher. I don't know if you knew Randy. Randy was a sub 220. He got third at Grandma's back in the day. And I remember him and I think talking about you one time because you were a working man. You were doing a 40-hour a week job, if I'm not mistaken. And yet you were
Ford Motor Company.
Yeah. And we're going to get it. But you were still running world class. And, a lot of guys, and Dick, I'm not going to pick on him, but I think Dick made a decision to kind of go whole hog in the running game and kind of committed to that, work some part-time gigs, making ends meet sort of thing.
I was looking for nickels and dimes and quarters every freaking week. So I wasn't making any money, I look back now, that might've been a poor decision on my part.
Anyway. And so I want to get into that, how you were able to pull that off and how your first marathon, all that. That's my side of what I'm looking forward to this podcast. Dick, what's your thoughts?
Well, jeepers, Dunn, I've known Doug for 40 plus years, and we raced against each other a lot. We've been good friends for a long, long time, and the best part of the whole deal is every June I get to see Doug and his wife Ann at the Grandma's Marathon in Duluth because Doug comes in and does a bunch of stuff for Grandma's Marathon like I do, and is on the course on the day covering the race as I also do. So. Yeah, he's been a good friend and a great competitor for a long, long time. So, I look at my kind of meager accomplishments compared to Doug. When you look at, the guy was a workhorse. The guy
40 wins.
40 wins. He could go out and if race directors wanted somebody to come into their race and guarantee they're going to get a guy that's going to come in there, run as hard as he can and break 220, 2 hours and 20 minutes. Doug was the one to give a call to. And so I'm excited about today. This is going to be a lot of fun.
So Doug, let's kick this off. How did, what's your background? I'm sorry, I didn't do really good research on your bio,
That's
but where'd you grow up at?
So I grew up in Livonia, Michigan, which is just outside of Detroit. So
all right.
You guys can hear me okay, right?
Oh, perfectly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And
good.
so what kind
yeah.
of
So I'm a third generation Ford employee.
Oh,
so
wow.
both my grandfathers. I had a grandfather in London, England, that worked for Ford, and then my dad in Dearborn, where Ford headquarters are.
Nice.
And then I had uncles. So grandfather's father, uncles, and then I was the last one. So nobody has followed me at Ford since then.
Is Ford still in Detroit building cars?
Oh yeah.
Not only that, I'm a race director too.
Right.
Okay. And three major events in Detroit that I turned small events into major events. And I have a St. Patrick's event that just finished a month ago. And next year, Ford Motor Company spent almost $1 billion redoing the Central Depot and train station. And my race finishes in a park that just got completed too.
Wow.
And I'm really excited about next year because we're all going to go into this depot that's almost like, the Grand Central in New York.
That's so
unbelievable.
Cool. Because you hear Detroit nowadays, you don't hear really positive stuff, it seems like. You always hear like that.
No, that's changing.
It is. It's coming on the rebound, I think, now.
What I like about Detroit is they've refurbished buildings. So rather than knock them down and start over, the architecture in Detroit is incredible.
Cool.
And so they're spending millions and millions on all kinds of. In fact, this coming week is a huge week because there's about 300,000 people coming into town for the NFL draft.
Well, that's right. Coming up on Thursday.
Yeah.
Cool.
So it's a big deal in the city.
So Doug, okay. So what got you started running?
Yeah.
Give us your story.
High school, I ran 10-minute gym class. In fact, I actually won my first race in 5th grade, but nobody encouraged me to run. In middle school, I was playing football, I played all kinds of stuff, and I was always an athlete.
Yeah.
And then a 10-minute run in gym class, my sophomore year, the coach said, "Oh, you should be running track." And I went to the track coach and he said, "We've already started. Meets are next week. Come back next year." So I missed running my sophomore year, and my junior year, I made it to the state meet.
Wow.
And then, but even then, so I ran at Michigan State. My first college race, I finished last. And that was when we were competing against Gary Bjorklund too.
Right, at the University of Minnesota.
So, but I ran Michigan State won the Big Ten championship in 70-71 in cross country, and I was on the team.
Now, were you there as a scholarship athlete or a walk-on athlete?
I was a walk-on. Yeah. I wanted to go to school at Michigan. I was there to go to school.
Right.
So, cross country and track was just like, great, I'm doing it, but it wasn't why I was there.
Sure.
And so after 2 years, I didn't care for my coach. And so I quit and kept studying. And then I was playing softball, racquetball, snow skiing until I started Ford Motor Company. And this guy who was a Michigan State wrestler, a really good wrestler, Michigan State, said, "You have real talent. You don't know it. And I'm going to get you Olympic trials in 1980. And so he got me to the trials in 80, and then everything changed.
So was he like your coach, Doug, then, as
far
as running?
Yeah, well, more so he helped me get sponsors.
Oh, there you go.
So he had a friend who was a broker, and they paid us to go run the New York City Marathon.
Nice.
And like, wow, somebody's going to pay me to go run somewhere? And then I started taking it serious, and me, I'm pretty outgoing, and I networked, and all of a sudden, I meet this guy, Dave Patterson, who said, "Hey, I can get you to Stockholm,"
Right.
And, so then the door started opening, and then I had a reason to go out and train hard.
Sure.
And and when I say train hard, I was one of those run 80% hard, and then spend 20% of my time running hard. And I ran 14 miles. I averaged 14 miles a day for 15 years.
So close to 100 miles a week.
Almost.
And so when did you run your first marathon? Where was it at, and how did that go?
So it's a good story.
Yeah,
we want to hear it.
So my first one was 1974. I was a senior at Michigan State, and a friend of mine I lived in a co-op house, kind of like Animal House, actually. and this guy had run Boston 4 times, and he said, "Hey, you guys all, let's go to Boston." And none of us had qualified. He said, "Don't worry about it. We'll create some fake marathon and sign
right
and submit it." Because Boston, this is 1974.
Yeah,
Boston was still pretty. No, in fact, you had to go in for a physical in the gym an hour before the race.
No kidding.
Yes,
wow.
And the guy, was turn and cough, right?
Right.
And so I get in the race. And, the first, as you know real well, Dick, the first 10 miles are all downhill. Right. And I thought, okay, I didn't have great shoes. I'll put some thick socks on to give me more cushioning. And I had blisters so bad by mile 10 that I took my socks off, and I'm running with my shoes in my hand. Wow. And I did that for over probably about a half a mile. And finally, I can't, I got 16 miles to go, and we've run all the way to Boston, come all the way out to Boston. I don't want to quit.
Sure.
So I ran into a drugstore, and the druggist put some Dr. Scholl pads in my shoes, and he took care of my blisters, and I got back in the race. Then with a couple miles to go, we could hear everybody screaming behind. I caught a friend of mine, and we hear all the screaming behind us, and it was the first woman.
Oh.
And my teammates like, "I don't want to get beat by a woman." and I'm like, I just want to finish. Right.
Yeah.
So I ended up finishing right in front of Mickey Gorman.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I ran even with 10 minutes in a drugstore, I ran a 2:47, And, and so my picture's in the paper the next day too, right? Because I'm right in front of her. And I didn't intend to do that. I mean, it just happened, and then I was on a stretcher for about 2 hours, couldn't get up.
Oh my God. 2:47. That was my first marathon too. It was 2:47.
Really?
Yep.
Wow. And so I'm walking backwards downstairs. I'm thinking, I'm never going to do this again.
Same thought went to my mind.
Yeah. And then, 2 weeks later, you're thinking, I know I can do better. Right.
Right.
And here I am talking to you guys 200 some marathons later.
Wow.
So
love it. That is amazing. And I always shared this story. I ran Boston in '83, and Joan Benoit, I didn't catch her till 10 miles. And I was running with a friend, and he was like your friend. He goes, I don't want to be, we're in camera shot of Joan Benoit, and people are going to say, you're running with the women. They don't realize she went through the half in 1:08:23, I think, that day, and so she's running 2:16 pace. And I said, well, we either got to drop back or we need to get ahead of her. And he goes, let's pass her. So we got ahead of her, and the rest of the course, she ran 2:22 that day. We could hear the screams, and we go, oh God, there she is. You could tell where she was on the course, because the people in Boston, they let you know when there's somebody coming and stuff. And so that's
you guys know. I mean, you guys know too, the Wellesley, where they're screaming and yelling,
girls,
trying to kiss you.
Yes.
And I'm on the other side of the road because I don't even want to get near them.
My friend
was so noisy, so loud.
My friend was a bachelor; he wanted to stop, and so I said, "No, we got to keep going. We got to keep going."
Well, the last time I ran through there's giant signs for women saying, "Kiss me, I'm a lesbian." So the appeal to the girls, the women on the course.
There's all kinds of them out there now.
Okay, let's move this along. Lose it now. So, let's get back then. You got your degree got you the position at Ford, or I think it was IT. Was you a computer dude? Or
I didn't start out that way, but I had a great boss. I was actually purchasing catalytic converters for test cars when I first started, and a boss. And here's actually a little story, and I'm sorry if I'm going over.
We love stories.
We love stories.
So I had a great boss, and he ended up, when we first started putting computers on engineers' desks, right? And so I did such a good job for him ordering catalytic converters that he said, all right, I'm going to bring you in to do that, do that kind of work too. But he tried to get Ford to sponsor me. And then he said, I just can't do it, Doug. He said, I tried. He said, but the problem is, if I do that for you, it's like opening Pandora's box, and every bowler and tennis player, all,
tiddlywink
so
player.
He said, and I had won Mardi Gras marathon one year wearing the Ford logo. And he said, I'm really sorry to say this to you, but don't wear that logo anymore.
Really? Why is that?
He said, because he thought because then people would think that Ford was sponsoring me. So he had bought me this shirt, with the logo. So I put the thing away, and then he moved away to Ford of Mexico, and like 10 years go by, and I decided, I'm just going through some shirts, and I find that shirt, and I decided to take it to work. And the day I go out and wear it, I run into him.
No.
I run into him like 10 years later.
Oh my gosh.
I'm like, how is that possible?
That makes the hair in your neck stand up when you're so.
I know. Like it's like, it was pretty freaky. So and he looks at me like, you still wearing that shirt?
Wow.
Did you get, how soon did shoes, like a shoe? I
you
saw you in a lot of Adidas. Was that, the whole career?
I started with Adidas for a while, and then they wanted me to run very specific races like New York, Boston, and, and I realized I could make a lot more money by going to Memphis, and smaller events. And what I would do is like, okay, I had to pay my own way, but I would call and say, okay, well, give me a host family so I don't have to pay for a hotel.
Yeah.
And all of my host families, I'm still friends with to this day,
cool.
And they were just, and then I had to tell Adidas, I'm really sorry, but
and Doug, there must have been a few envelopes under the table, I would imagine, at some of those races.
No, not really.
Really?
Not really. Okay. But you know what? I had a great job at Ford.
Right.
They were very flexible with my schedule. And in fact, when I became the director of the Detroit Marathon, Bill Ford Jr. said, "Hey, go do what you need to do.
Nice.
We want you to do something great for the community." He's very community oriented, and he said, "Go, But the problem was, I'd sit in my office till 11:00 at night some nights, getting my work done at Ford and directing the race. But if you don't mind me going off, directing the marathon, it was one of those things, just kind of sitting at 3,000 every year, doing fine. And it used to start in Canada, and they bus everybody over to Canada to go through a tunnel and then finish in Detroit. And I said, no, we got to change this. We got to make it different. We need to start and finish. So I had my first year, I busted my butt to get the bridge. There's an Ambassador Bridge that's privately owned. And I bugged them for 6 months to let me use their bridge. And they kept saying that we're working on the bridge. And I realized you're always working on the bridge.
Right.
You start at one end to the other and keep going, right? But I got the owner of the Detroit Tigers and then the publisher of the Free Press to come with me. And they said, wow, you're bringing the big guns in. Like, yeah, I need to make this happen. Yeah. And the bridge now is still the highlight of the race because you're coming up over the bridge at sunrise and you see both borders, and it's incredible. So the race went from 3,000 to over 20,000 people.
Now, were you getting
Christmas?
Were you getting a salary for that? Were you getting paid for all this time and work?
Yeah, I was getting. Yeah.
I hope so.
But here's the cool thing. So the race finished in Tiger Stadium, and I had it come in from the outfield and finished at first base.
Wow.
And then I had a finish shoot cross home plate. And I wish back then we didn't have cameras everywhere. And I wish I'd had a camera because we would watch all these runners hobbling across the finish line, but they'd see home plate. What would they do? Slide. They're all sliding across home plate. It was so cool to watch.
That's amazing.
That
would be cool. Man, talk about finish line photos. That would people, a lot of times you get that in the mail. It says, you want to buy this? Like, heck no, that one would have sold.
That one, yes. That one. So, and I have to tell you one thing too that I added to it. And I stole the idea from the director of the Las Vegas Marathon. And I wish more marathons would do this. Is we have green numbers for first timers. So we call them the greenies. Yeah. And so all the spectators who are in the know on the course, they see a green number like, oh, you're a first timer, so you get extra cheering and, and really encourage people that are running their very first marathon.
So then Doug, then you were also the race director for their gigantic turkey trot race.
Yeah.
Now I would imagine that started out kind of meager. And then what did those numbers build up to when you were directing?
So how I did that is I walked in the office and I had left the marathon by then.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, the success is going to be if we make this parade-like. The race has got to look and feel like it's part of the Thanksgiving Day parade.
Sure.
So we're going to have paper mache big heads. We're going to have giant inflatables. We're going to have tons of music. The race is all going to run on the parade route. So there's no other race in Michigan where you have 300,000 people watching,
right.
And that's what did it. So the race just kept climbing and climbing. And I encourage families to wear costumes. The coolest costume I ever saw was a whole family wearing every color of the Crayola crayons.
Oh my gosh.
So it was like a whole box of crayons going down the road.
That's creative.
I mean, really fun stuff.
Man.
And now you're still the race director of the Corktown, the St. Patty's Day race, correct?
Yeah. But I got lucky. The parade company found a great woman. I knew her mother too, actually, who took over my race, and I still help her. And I said, I'm going to do everything I can to help you be successful. And she's become successful at what she does.
And that's a big race too now.
Oh, it's 15,000.
And you're running world-class marathons through most all of this time as well.
I know. I've been race director for over 40. I've been racer for over 40 years now. Okay, I sleep. I'm not like Dave McGilvery
right.
of Boston, right? Dave, I don't know where he finds it because Dave's, I think, got 5 kids too.
Yeah,
and Dave, and what I love about Dave is whenever I've had to call him or text him or whatever, within 24 hours he gets back to you.
Nice.
Always.
Yeah.
He just really cares about what he does. So it's great to emulate him.
So Doug, as you started running these sub 220 marathoners, I know for many years it was back and forth with you, Kjell-Erik Stahl from Sweden. And eventually you surpassed him, if I remember right, by like 1 or 2 or something? Or
he ended up with 70 and I ended up with 76.
76. Okay.
Yeah. You want me to tell you a Kjell-Erik story?
Sure.
All right, so Grandma's Marathon. We're rooming together.
Oh,
in fact, he encouraged me to break his records, okay? He said, you know what, I got the record. I'm lucky I got a record. And I feel the same way. You got it, right? So, in fact, Yuki, who broke from Japan, broke all our records. And hey, good for him. Great.
Yeah, records are made to be broke.
Exactly. So Kjell-Erik and I were rooming together. And And Shell Eric's pretty well off. Okay, he was a real successful telecommunications supervisor, and he's sponsored by Nike. But he's got his lucky shorts. He had some pink shorts, Nike shorts that were unraveling at the seams, and I threw them away. I'm like, why are you wearing these things? You know,
Yeah.
so I threw them in a basket. I said, you should be wearing those. So on race day, he's smiling at me and he's laughing. I'm like, all right, what's up? And because he's wearing his pink shorts, right? But then he points down to his socks, and he's got holes in the heels of his socks. And he goes, "These are my lucky socks too."
Oh my gosh! I thought Dick was bad with superstition.
I know.
You know some of Dick's stories, I'm sure, about hanging his old racing uniform in the window to watch him run by at Grandma's because he felt so bad about leaving it in the closet.
I did.
Whatever works.
So did you and Shell Eric become, I would imagine, pretty good friends over the years?
Oh yeah, because we raced in Manila together.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think how many other places. Honolulu, many times. In fact, one year after Honolulu, because I was one of those guys after the race to just kind of loosen up my muscles. Late in the evening after the race, I would go out and just maybe run 2 miles or something, right? And who do I run into? Shell Eric's out
doing the
warming
same
down
thing
too. So yeah, doing the same thing.
So,
but he and I, we had a lot of trips to Honolulu together.
So, Doug, one of your favorite events that you go to every year, and of course mine too, it's like my second hometown, is the Grandma's Marathon. And you won it for the first time in 1989. And then 4 years later, at age 41, you win it again. Tell us about those two Grandma's Marathons that you won.
And I have to tell you too, people ask, and even though I was directing Detroit, people always ask me, I'm sure you too, what's your favorite marathon? Yeah. And they're always surprised when I say Duluth, Minnesota and Grandma's Marathon.
Sure.
And it truly is.
Mine
it is
too.
My favorite marathon. What they do there is just phenomenal.
It is.
For that size city and the whole event, it's just incredible.
And the way the city comes out and just it's a celebration of Duluth that weekend,
Yeah. Yeah.
So tell us about that first one.
Well, actually, I'll tell you more about the second one. Okay. So the second one, I'm 41. I'm thinking, I'm still running well.
Right.
And I'll tell you about Boston in a minute. So, but anyway, at 41, I'm running with a whole pack of people, and I can't think of his name, but there was a guy from New Zealand that he wanted to qualify for his Olympic team, and he had to run 2:11.
Yeah.
So he just took off, and he's running 2:11 pace, and we're way back, 5 minutes behind, and I don't know what it was, but at mile 17, I'm with Shell Eric Stahl, a couple other guys, and I said, something's going to happen. Something's going to happen. I know it's going to happen. There's no way this guy's going to hold that pace all by himself. Right. And sure enough, we get to the Radisson Hotel, and the crowd's screaming, saying, the lead runner just dropped out.
Wow.
He just dropped out. And all of a sudden I'm looking around. I'm going to win.
Did that kind of pump you up? And were you with a group of guys at that point, or were you by yourself?
Yeah, I was with Shell Eric and another Kenyan.
With like a mile to go.
Yeah, a couple miles to go. And this guy could have jogged and probably still won. Yeah. But he just walked off to his hotel.
Oh my gosh!
Because he wasn't going to run his 2:11.
Yeah, okay.
He did. Yeah, so that was it. So I ended up winning. But kind of switching for a minute. But so a year later, I'm engaged to be married. I'm on a high, and a woman I met actually at the starting line of the New York City Marathon. And okay, I'm going to digress.
Go ahead.
So at New York, at New York, they have a psych team. So these psychologists, they use them to make sure the lead runners are behind the starting line, but they also have a clipboard. They walk around to talk to people and calm them down that are really nervous.
Okay.
And if they have, let's say they have bridge phobias, right?
Yeah.
And so what they do is they have a pocket full of the finish line tape from the year before. They cut it up into little small pieces with a safety pin to it, and they'll pin it to their singlet. And they'll say, every time you start feeling fearful, rub that tape and visualize you're going to cross the finish line. Wow. And they said it would really work. So I see this woman at the starting line and our eyes lock. And then we meet again at the finish line, talk to each other. Then we meet again at the award ceremony. And then I stayed a couple extra days in New York and ended up marrying her 9 months later. And I still love her. We're no longer married, but I love her family. It was really a lot of fun. But then we're engaged the following year, and I'm in New York, I'm at Boston Marathon. I'm 42 years old, and I run the best race of my life. and I ran a 2:15 at 42.
At 42?
At 42, I ran
I
a
don't
2:15.
remember that.
You won
And
the Masters.
I had won the
Yeah,
I won the Masters division, and it was a battle back and forth. Pierre Levis from France, and Pierre had beat me 2 years earlier, and I made a couple mistakes on the course, and I just ran out of real estate.
Yeah.
So I he was like about 100 yards ahead of me, and so then I beat him a year later at Las Vegas, where they had the World Masters Championships. And it's the biggest payday I ever had, where it was 10 grand for overall master, and then you could double dip and it was 5 grand for overall period.
Nice.
And Pierre went out at world record pace, and at 5 miles cramped up and dropped out. And I look around like, I can beat everybody else here. I know I have more talent. And so I won the race, and they had 15 grand in my pocket, and Pierre's just playing the slots, right? And then then we battle again at Boston, but I went out real conservative, and just pulled everybody in. And then Pierre ran out of real estate, and I beat him by about 15 seconds.
So 2:15 at age 42.
Yeah. So that was the best race of my life.
How many sub 220s in 1 year? I think I read 12.
89. In fact, the year I won Grandma was 89. I ran 12 sub 220s.
I thought I read
and I could have had 13, but I ran Bangkok knowing it was hot, and I had won twice. So it was going to be my third time winning. So I ran a good race, but I didn't think I was going to break 220. And with about, I don't know, well, it's all in kilometers. With about 3 kilometers to go, they said, what, you're on sub 220 pace or close to it. And I, at that point, it was really too late. I had just, and they had the AIMS, the Association of International Marathons. You know that,
Sure.
Dick, right? So they had a course remeasure the course, and said, oh, we're about 100 meters short. And I joked, I said, that'll probably cost me a sub 220. And it did.
Gosh.
I ran 2:20.10, and just missed an extra sub 220. But then I ended up going, so you're like this. So I have 11 sub 220s, and I need to go down to San Diego, where I was invited to break the record. And my boss at Ford, I had a lot of great bosses, but I had one boss that year in '89 who did not like me.
Oh, he didn't?
And he didn't like me. And he said, sorry, you can't I need 1 day off without pay. And he goes, I'm sorry, we need you at work. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I said, we're talking about world record here.
Right.
So he didn't want me to go. So I went over his head to my exec, who I knew.
Yeah.
And he said, absolutely take the day off. And I said, well, I'm not going to be able to work for that guy when I come back.
Right.
He goes, give me 2 weeks. 2 weeks, he found me a better job, a great boss, and I told that guy to take a hike.
Things worked out. Good, yeah.
And of course, I broke the record.
Right.
So, yeah.
Wow.
All right.
Wow.
I'm just
And
kind
then
of. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, and then Doug, so you qualified for the Olympic trials not once, not twice, not 3 times, not 4, 5 times?
5
Has anyone else
times.
ever done that
times.
you're aware of?
Times.
There is at least 6.
Really?
And I skipped 2 of them because 80 was in Buffalo,
Right.
okay?
I
Which
ran
the first
that
time
one.
you want to go, right? So 84, I'm like, I'm not going to go back to Buffalo.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be even in the top 10, so why should I go?
Sure.
And I ended up getting offers to go to Munich, Germany, and Sydney, Australia, rather than go to Buffalo. And then I ran with you in New Jersey for a while.
Right? 88.
When it was there. Yeah, you and I were, I think, in Hoboken running together for a little while.
Gosh.
And then I skipped Columbus because I had better opportunities as a master.
Yeah.
And then I ran in '96. I ran Charlotte. And here's the thing: in Charlotte, I'm the oldest guy in the field, and I'm running last. Do you guys know who Coach Roy Benson is?
Oh, yeah, from Atlanta Track Club.
Yeah, so I did a seminar for him here in Asheville. In fact, that was my first time here to Asheville. And so I'm running along. I'm probably about mile 20, and I'm in last place. And in my head, I'm thinking, oh, great, I'm going to run into Roy Benson, and he's going to see me running last. And not even a mile later, there he is right there. As I'm thinking, I'm like, oh, great. So then I'm running last. Like, I don't care, right? I'm running. I'm having fun. And then with about 2 miles to go, I see a kid pull off the course, a young kid. And I start screaming at him, like, you only have 2 miles to go. You're going to quit? He goes, yeah, I don't have it. And I said, get your ass back here.
Right.
We're going to run together. I said, I don't care how slow you got to go. We're going to run together. You're going to finish. And so we're talking. I find out he's from Spartanburg. I'm like, this is almost like your hometown marathon. You got family at the finish line, right? He goes, yeah. And I said, all right. I said, we're going to run together. So then a quarter mile to go, he says, I got to walk. And he said, go ahead. I said, I'm going to go ahead, but I'm not leaving the finish line till I see you cross.
Yeah.
And he goes, okay. So he crosses the finish line, and I didn't think he knew who I was. And he runs right up to me, gives me a big hug, and he goes, Mr. Kurtis, thank you so much for making me finish.
That is so cool.
Great
So I was
story.
second. I was second to last.
So what kind of time, I know you've got 200 sub 3 hour marathons. How many people just, that's their goal. I mean, to break that 3 hour barrier.
Yeah. And at age 61, Doug, that was your last,
I know.
You broke 3 hours for the last time at age 61, correct?
Yeah. Cause my friends, I've always been on running clubs too, and my running club in Detroit said, you got to get to 200. So I ran one. It took me 3 tries, and Grandma's was one of them. I ran a 3:05 at Grandma's, and it was just one of those really hot days, and I couldn't do it. So, but it turned out great because I ended up doing it at my hometown marathon in Detroit, in front of all my friends and family. And then I'm finally like, I'm done. I'm not running 75, 80 miles a week.
So Doug, when you ran that sub 3 hours at 61, I think you ran like 2:59 and some change. Did you know? The last thing you want to do as a marathon, that last mile is have to push it. So did you know it was going to be pretty close?
Yeah, I got lucky. I'm lucky I got it, though. It was a little bit of a windy day.
Yeah.
But it's another one of those things. I'm at the expo. I run into a former training partner, and I said, oh, what do you plan to do? He goes, I'm trying to break 3 hours. I said, oh, well, maybe we'll end up running together. Well, we got up on the bridge, the Ambassador Bridge, and we ended up running together for over 20 miles.
Nice.
And with 3 miles to go, he's looking at me. I'm like, I know I'm holding you back. Go. I've got this, and I knew I had about a minute, but I thought, I should be okay.
Yeah.
So, and then same thing. He's waiting for me at the finish line, and there's the picture in the paper the next day is the two of us hugging each other, and I couldn't have done it without him.
Yeah.
He really helped me make it.
Injuries. He stayed healthy pretty much through this 40-year stretch.
My wife says I'm a freak of nature.
She's right.
So, and she's right. I mean, when you're one of the best in the world, and I've never been injured from running.
Wow.
Never a knee problem, not one knee problem, and so I was just really smart about how I trained. But Dick, I wasn't trying to win London. Okay.
Sure.
I just wanted to run good races. That's all I wanted to do.
I did.
You did. I was very consistent.
You were the most consistent runner I've ever met.
But it was never my goal to win. That was not my intent. I just wanted to cross the finish line, and did I run a good race?
Right.
That's all I wanted to do.
And you never put in those
mega miles,
like those 140 mile hour.
No.
Probably was a good thing.
Yeah, because part of it I just didn't have the time.
Yeah.
I didn't have the time. And even, when I was running my sub 3 hour thing, my last sub 3 hour, I was writing a weekly column too for the Detroit Free Press.
Yeah.
I 7 years I wrote a weekly running column.
You did. Wow.
Yeah.
How about, let me just throw some goofy questions. Stretching. Are you an advocate? Yeah. Are you kind of like most people, lip service?
Lip service.
Okay.
Me too.
Me too.
but now I'm in my 70s, and all of a sudden, my hip might be a little sore or whatever. So then, then I'll spend 2 weeks, doing some stuff till it goes away, and then I'm good for a while.
I'm constantly on YouTube looking at physical therapists giving recommendations for all of I'm using physio tape all the time on aches and pains and stuff we didn't have.
Well, you're gonna like this. I have a wonderful doctor here who's a runner, and so we've run together and stuff. But back in Michigan, same thing. I had a wonderful doctor my wife found, and I had shoulder issues, and she was like, "What? Why do you think your shoulder hurt?" And I was just kind of joking. I said, "Too much air guitar. I play too much air guitar." And she says to me, she goes, I actually really like air guitar. She says, I'm actually dead serious. I like playing air guitar. And so I'm rehabbing, and I'm watching all these documentary films, and I find out there's a world championships of air guitar in Norway every year. Yeah, there's this whole subculture. They have regional, national championships of air guitar.
That's like there's something just made up.
I mean, there's like
it's the real thing.
There's like a national donut day. There's a national day for every item, I think, on the face of the earth. Now there's a competition.
Today's 420 day. Actually, I was watching I like watching documentary films, right? So Friday was bicycle day. because bicycle day is the guy that invented LSD.
Okay.
he got stoned and he couldn't drive home, so he got on his bicycle, and his colleagues said from now on it's LSD day is bicycle day.
Oh my gosh.
Talk about a trivia question. Not too many people will know that one. Let me tell you. That's amazing. All right. Let me, strength training, sit-ups, push-ups, chin-ups, going to the gym.
Nothing.
Okay.
0.
All right.
Zero.
Diet. Were
No, I
you,
didn't
were you really a close guy watching, making sure you had all your fruits and vegetables?
Well, Dick, you know this too when we get drug tested all the time,
Yeah.
right? So they would go through their list and they'd ask me what kind of vitamins I take. And I said, I take vitamin M. I'm like, M? Yeah, M&Ms. I eat M&Ms every day.
Mike and I,
And I still eat them.
Peanut
And
M&Ms.
I still eat M&Ms.
Peanut M&Ms.
I still eat M&Ms.
Oh.
But no, I vary my diet.
Me too.
My wife's a vegetarian, so I eat some vegetarian meals, but no, I just think as long as I'm varying my diet and
I do too.
trying to, yeah,
And I already
I'm
know the
okay.
answer.
And
Cross training. It really didn't exist that much back in the 70s, 80s. I don't know. Did you
Yeah.
ever try to swim, bike, any of that sort of stuff?
I did a little bit, but I still enjoy running. I like to run.
Me too.
And like today I played pickleball because it's just fun and it's something I do occasionally. But now my wife has a whole group of friends here that are hikers. In fact, she met all these women through the Connollys.
Mhm.
So
Stacy
John
and
Connolly.
John
Yeah,
Connolly.
Stacy and John. So they had a party the second week we moved in, and my wife meets all these amazing women. They all like drinking wine. They all
Right.
read. They're all readers. They have book club together, and then they hike together. And so the men, we call ourselves the tag-alongs, so we get to tag along. And finally, one of the leaders said, "Hey, let's do our own thing." So I'm bowling every week
Good
now.
for you.
Oh my gosh.
So-
You're a man
You're
of
a
I
jack
just
of
bought
all trades.
I just bought my first bowling ball last week, so now I've got a better ball.
And just so
to bowl.
people know,
What-
John and Stacy Conley were the race directors of Austin Marathon, which you had won.
Right.
And so is that how you
Yes.
initially met up or knew them?
Yeah, and here's another story. So I couldn't tell you much about the year I won, but the year before I finished third, and it was probably one of the most exciting races I've ever run because Brad Hawthorne and I were friends,
Remember Brad?
and he and I run together, and we had a Kenyan sitting behind us the whole race, and I looked 25-mile mark. I ran a perfect race, but at 25 miles, where the three of us are still together. And I look at Brad and I said, if I don't win, you better win because we've done all the work.
Right.
So we're still together at mile 26.
Wow.
And Brad took off and beat the Kenyan, and I ended up third. And even though I was third, it was more exciting than when I won. It
Sure.
really was.
That's
Yeah, it was really a cool race.
So the Conleys then moved to Weaverville like in 2018.
Yes.
When did you get to the North Carolina? Just so people might know.
So I've been here 6 years now.
Okay, so about the same time.
So-
And I just moved
Yeah,
here.
and the Conleys were great.
I-
They gave us. They said we got a perfect realtor for you,
Oh.
and so the realtor found us the house we're in now.
Called them up. And I moved here about
I know.
about 6
In fact-
months ago, so it's wonderful. Yeah.
In fact, I had my basement redone, and I couldn't find a good contractor because this was kind of post-COVID, and I called Rachel up, and I said, "Rachel, find me a good contractor." She goes, "I got a perfect guy for you. He's a runner. He lives a mile from your house.
Nice.
He reminds me of Jim Henson from the Muppets.
Oh, nice.
Kind of looks like him, and he's very philosophical. And this guy and his whole team were just wonderful to work with, and they just did a beautiful job. So we have a party room in our basement now.
So now I gotta tell you something. So
Yeah.
as great as a runner Doug is and was, so we have our Beardsley races back in Detroit Lakes every year, and we brought Doug in as one of our legends of the sport, and he did a great job. And I always would take whoever we invited in every year, either before the race or afterwards. I'd always take them out fishing. So Doug, do you remember this? So we went on to a little lake west of town. Let's just say this. Doug, I don't think he could catch a fish if it was hooked on his line and was sitting in a bathtub.
And the opposite, how could I forget, Dick? I have never seen anybody catch as many fish as you did.
And Doug, I'm just giving you a bad time.
But seriously, I've never seen anybody catch as many. I'm asking Dick, like, how the hell could you catch that many fish? He's like, well, I've been fishing since I was 3. You know,
True.
We had so much fun. We had so much
yeah,
fun.
it was
that day.
fun. It was
and
fun.
And you did such a great job at our event. And but I had to bring that up because I mean it was just something else to see. I've never seen anybody that never caught or caught so few fish, but were trying as hard
I
as
was
they
trying.
could.
Now,
I know.
you know, I'm gonna. I love going fishing with Dick. I don't fish a lick, and I always gave Dick a hard time. I go, it's just dumb luck. If a fish comes along and grabs the bait, you catch a fish. If it don't, you sit there all day bored out of your gourd. Of course, that just drives Dick crazy because he quickly explained to me there's an art and the skill involved to fishing.
For sure.
And
Oh,
I didn't
absolutely.
appreciate it until I went fishing with him, and we catch fish. And like I told
But
people,
Doug,
I love it.
he catches fish.
And I tell you, well,
We
Dick's a
have
great
fun
teacher.
time.
And if you're not catching fish,
Yeah.
you're still having a good time with Dick Beardsley. And so it's a
Oh,
win-win.
how can you not have a good time with Dick?
Oh.
Well,
If you're not having a good time with Dick, something's wrong. Okay.
Well, there's
well,
a-
people,
By the way, Mike, I have 3 friends that live near me here. They're all fly fishermen.
Oh, yeah.
And one of them makes his own flies. And I'm like, when are you guys going to take me?
And
You
Dick,
know, I want to at least try it
my
once.
wife and I cycle. We
you know?
ride by the Big Laurel all the time, and I see fly fishermen out there, and I think, I wonder if Beards has ever done that. If he's ever done any fly
well, you
fishing.
know, my grandfather was a fly fishing guide for trout in Montana, and he unfortunately died before I was born. So I've done a little bit of fly fishing, but I'll tell you what, I'm not the most coordinated guy in the world, and you know, you gotta. Fly
Skill.
fishing, you got to kind of know what you're doing a little bit. You know, take some practice.
All
Yeah.
right.
Well, Dick, if you come out, there's a lot of great fishing.
Oh, I
here
know
in
it.
this
My
area.
sister and brother-in-law who live out in Weaverville, they do quite a bit of fly, or not Weaverville, out in Waynesville,
yeah.
and they do quite a bit of fly fishing. And I got to tell you, where you folks, where you and Dunn live, Doug, it's one of the most beautiful places I've ever been to in my life. It's just absolutely gorgeous. And I can see why you both like to be there, retired, and enjoying the good life there.
It's
So, Mike, I think Dick's going to have to come out to take us
I
fishing,
would
right?
think
That'd
so.
be fun.
We'll do it. Now, Doug, we always run out of time, but you know, I got a theme I kind of picked up on you. You mentioned so often, how do I want to say this? You've had people come into your life that were of great asset to you. And not that they were,
Yes.
it was like, it was kind of serendipitous in most cases, but I guess you kind of have an open personality. You seem like a pretty nice guy to get along with. And so people came into your life and said, hey, I want to help this guy. And you were like, maybe you reached out and said, hey, is there any way you can help me? And I think there's a message I'm trying to give to anybody who might hear this podcast and say, you know, I don't know if there's a secret to your success, a lot of hard work, but also the willingness to take risk, the willingness, what's your thoughts?
Well, especially networking.
There you go.
You know, and I've always thought of my work, especially as a racer, as a two-way street. You know, and even when I coached 3 people made Olympic trials, and I said I would not coach them unless they volunteered. You know, and my wife volunteers every week as a trail maintenance, and I'm at Mana Food Bank. You know, and so we've always given back. I've always felt that way, I've had 15 race directors work with me. I've always thought of my races as teaching experiences too. So I've always wanted to help other people be successful in what they do, especially in the running world. So it's just, life is great when you're people helping you and you're helping them. And all my friends know they can call me anytime. And if there's something I can do to help them, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
You know, and it just makes every
That's
day
what
a
good
great
friendships
day.
are about. It's just like Mike and I. Mike and I have known each other it's closing in on 50 years here pretty soon. And him and his wife Karen, they would give me the shirt off of their back if I needed help with, and because they've been there when I needed help, and I'm right there for him and Karen and his kids, and you know.
Well, especially when I told you earlier about host families. So I was so used to people hosting me that now here where I live, we're hosting all the time.
Sure.
You know, we have guests all the time. And in fact, we came back from Charleston yesterday because I have friends that bought a home there, and I have a friend in Savannah now. So it's great when I've got cool places to go to, and you know, and they all come and visit us too. So it's just really wonderful.
I think it's commendable. You know, too often we get so involved, and I think runners sometimes are very. And Dick and I have talked about this. We can be really selfish, you know, because we kind of have goals and aspirations, an obsession, if you would, in some cases, and it kind of makes other things take a second seat. So openness to say no. That's sure. You have to be serious. You have to focus, but at the same time, you don't want to become that one-dimensional person.
No, it's always good to give
closing
back.
out so many beautiful things in the world. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, my wife would tell you if I had any race that, okay, I'll tell you the most fun I've ever had in a race was Marathon du Médoc in France. Okay. Give me an excuse to wear a costume and I'll wear a costume. Okay. So the last time I ran there, I was Pepe Le Pew.
Oh my
I was wearing a skunk costume.
All the girls ran from you.
Right.
He's got quite a reputation, if I remember right.
Yeah.
But it's probably the most fun I've had in a marathon because 7,000 people wear costumes and there's 21 wine stops during the race.
Gosh,
I wouldn't make it to the end.
I know. Well, I don't really drink that much, but I didn't have a problem with the wine, but I didn't drink enough water. I got dehydrated. Especially when you're in a skunk costume.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know.
Well, listen, Doug.
Yeah,
Well,
we could go on with you for hours.
Doug, we can't thank you enough for taking the time out of your afternoon and joining us today. I knew this was going to be a fun interview, and it absolutely was. And you've been a wonderful friend, and I can't wait to see you and Ann in June at the Grammars Marathon.
Marathon.
We're neighbors, I hear, and we're new to the neighborhood. We've been here less than 6 months, so I'm putting the guilt on you. Invite us over, get the Conleys together. I told Stacy and John, I said, hey, just because Dick's not coming doesn't mean we can't all get together sometime.
No,
so we'll get him out here. We'll get him back.
And I'll get down there too here shortly, hopefully. And
Mike, well, at least let's go have lunch over at Blue Mountain Pizza.
If you ever go to Stony Knob Cafe or
that's probably it's funny you mention it because that's probably my favorite restaurant in Nashville.
Mine too. And then we've also got
I love
how about
Stony Knob.
Salt-Faced Mule? Have you been there?
You're making me hungry now, you guys.
The macaroni and brisket.
Dick,
it's off.
And Dick, I know you don't drink, and I don't really like the taste of beer all that much, but we have 4 breweries in Weaverville.
Oh my God,
4.
Well, Asheville's probably got 400, and so I don't know what.
I know. I know.
Great. Well, listen, we want to thank Doug. We want to thank everybody for listening. And if you have any questions for us or comments about the show, you can contact us directly here at our website at beardsanddunpod.com, or you can leave us a comment on your Facebook, Instagram, or X, all at Beards and Dun Pod.
Yeah, and if you're watching this on YouTube, be sure to give us a comment or hit subscribe. We'd love to hear from you. And Doug, my personal thanks for you. I really look forward to getting a chance to not really meet you, but meet you directly. And hopefully we'll get to meet again.
We'll meet directly, Mike.
All right, sounds
good. Good to see you again, Dick.
We'll see you in June.
Okay, have a great day,
All right,
everybody.
take care.
Bye-bye, guys.
Bye, guys.